So basically, I'm coming on live today, and I'm going to actually try to start coming on more often live so that I can talk to y'all because, um, yeah, like, we have our private community for Legacy League, and there's just really been a push for me to share more of what we do in our community with more of you and give you all more access to what's happening and what's going on. Because a lot of the information that I share, you can still implement without paying for or joining some of the more premium price containers. And so that is why I'm hosting this event today, because I want to give you all an opportunity to ask the questions. I have people often send me DMs about different things. We also put a call out to our community for those who could not join, since it is at 4:30 Central. A lot of you could not join just because of work and things like that. And even just getting off of work and having to transition to family and things like that. It just made it a little more difficult for you all to join. But let me tell you something, because y'all are high impact, many of you will write me about this, right? Oh, it's during work time. I can't make it. It's really hard with family work. And then every time I change my times for events and things like that to accommodate y'all to the evening, and then I sacrifice time with my family, then y'all don't show up. So it is what it is. So we're here today at 4:30, and we are going to answer some questions. If you can join in live, drop a question in the chat, say hey, let me know that you're here, and let me know what questions you have, right? Because I really want to make sure that you all are understanding what I mean when I talk about career pivoting, what I mean when I say that you have the ability to work less and earn more. Let me know, those things that maybe you're pondering that you haven't maybe even put language to, but you have it swirling around in your head, and you're overthinking it, overanalyzing it. Some of my clients, I tell them they're procrastinating, right? They're just, oh, let me pray on it. Let me ask the Lord, all the things, right? But we're coming in today because I want you all to just give it to me straight. What questions do you have, right? And I want to help you be able to move forward, okay? So that is my offering to you, right? It is my investment in you. And yeah, I want to know how I can better serve and support you all in working towards a life where you can work less and earn more, okay? So the point of today is to talk a little bit about career pivots. What do I mean when I talk about career pivots? It's also to help you recognize what your options potentially could be if you're somebody who is like, well, I don't want to quit my job, or I don't want to be an entrepreneur, right? That's okay. We'll cover what to do if you feel like you are a multi-passionate person or multi-gifted person, and you just kind of feel overwhelmed sometimes about just all the things that you want to do, but you feel like sometimes maybe there's a lot of motion and no movement. So we're going to talk about that. The other thing I want us to talk about is the difference, right, between being busy and being aligned. Okay. And we're going to ground alignment a little bit more so that it's not this abstract concept that we just kind of throw around, and not really give real definition and real structure to it so that you can actually implement on that, right? And then the last thing that I want us to touch on, and I'm not spending a ton of time today, y'all, like 30 minutes tops and we should be done, right? But I do want to touch on how to position yourself, right? If you do want to quit. Some people do want to quit. I've fired my 9 to 5, right? And some of my clients have that as an aspiration as well. But some of you may not be in that space, right? That may not be a career pivot, your type of career pivot, right? And that's cool. Okay. So the goal is to answer your questions, help you move forward, to get some clarity, and really encourage you to take some action. Okay. So it's time to get to the next level. All right. So I did send an invite to my community before this session. My team gave me the content for the week, and then I realized I didn't set this up to email my community. so, so we sent an email out to them this morning and said, "Oh, we're going live, by the way. And if you can't make it, send us your questions, and we'll try to answer them live." So they will be probably tuning back in and watching the replays. Okay. So it doesn't look like Kashana came back in, which is fine. But let's jump into one of the questions that somebody sent actually, and they would like it answered, right? And so that question is, what does it actually look like to use your job as capital and not a cage? Okay. So this, I love this question actually because it's from a piece of content that came out not too long ago, where I talked about, right, like transitioning your work to make it an investor instead of a cage, right? And so as you think about your work, right, and your job, right, I don't even like to say job because many of you have careers, right? These are endeavors that you have invested in. You have spent your life training and developing in and growing mastery in, right? And so the key critical piece here, right, is how do you use it as capital? Okay. Now, when we talk about capital, or when I talk about capital, it's really about a strategic investment, right? And that can be time, that can be money, that can be resources, it can be network, it can be a variety of things, right? But how you do that, right, is you first ground yourself in the fact that this is not where you want to stay, right? And sometimes that can be really, really hard for y'all to accept, especially when you have spent your life investing in something, right? I am a prime example, right? Spent years training as a researcher, as a scientist, right? Got my doctorate, worked in academia, right? Did all the things, right? And then when I got there, I was like, this isn't actually what I thought this was going to be. And maybe I changed my mind. But again, there had been so much invested, right? And so then I had to make a decision, right? Like, do I stay here out of obligation, or do I decide, oh, it gets better, there's more, right? And so for you, I want you to be thinking about how can you be happy now, right? Don't spend your energy like focusing on like, oh, I want to fire them, I want to quit, whatever, right? Like you can have that be the end goal, but I want you to be flexible in how you think about the strategy or the process of how you get there, right? And so how you do that is you actually start to find opportunities where they can invest in you and in your development, and that development should be in transferable skills. So things that you can actually leverage and use outside of that specific role, right? So ideally, it would be things that would make you more attractive to other people, right? So, and whether that is attractive to other people because you want to get a different job, or it could be attractive to other people because you want to start your own thing or be an entrepreneur, and you need to be able to position yourself as high value and competent in a space that may be adjacent, or it may be completely different than what you had done previously. Okay. So that is the answer to that question. Okay. What does it look like to use your job as capital and not a cage? The other question that came in is what is she asking? But how do you pivot? Okay, so I think what she's asking is, oh, okay, I got you. So how do you pivot without starting over if your current job isn't necessarily bad? Okay, so she was asking about like a toxic, like my job is not toxic, right? But how do I pivot without starting over? Okay, so here's the thing that I want you to know is that you don't have to pivot because something's wrong. Let that sink in, okay? Because that is a job principle, but it's also a life principle that I want you to carry with you, right? You don't have to say, oh, I'm out of here, I want to do something different because you're angry or you're frustrated or you feel like it's just crappy, right? You can actually make a decision to pivot when things are actually pretty good, but they may not be your good, right? And we all go through different seasons in life, and you have different needs depending on the season, right? And so one job or one career may be really great and phenomenal for a specific season, but then as you transition and as you grow and evolve, that may not be true anymore, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to just be like, oh, I hate them, and so I'm trying to quit and fire them, right? It doesn't mean that. You actually have permission, and you can give yourself permission to pivot, even if it's a lovely place to be. Pain does not have to be the catalyst for why you want to pivot, right? And for many of you that I work with specifically, you're really not going to do it until you feel pain, unfortunately. And don't feel shame about it, because that is human nature, right? It's human nature for us to kind of feel that tinge of pain, uncomfortableness, discomfort that really spurs us and gives us that energy. That's really what anger does, right? It gives you energy and motivation to act. And so I want to let you know, though, that you don't have to get to that place before you actually react and make a decision and take action on it. Okay? So, Chanel, thank you for that question. Okay, and if you're watching this back and that's not what you were trying to ask, let me know. Let me know, and I'm happy to clarify and give you a little bit more insight. Okay. All right. All right. This question is for my multi-passionate and overwhelmed women. Okay. How do you prioritize your pivot when your plate is already full? This is the good stuff. Y'all are trying to challenge me today. Okay. How do you prioritize a pivot? Okay. When your plate is already full. This is layered, okay? Because it's kind of like how we talk about busy, right? Like I meet people all the time where they're like, oh, I would join this, or I would do that, but I'm just so busy, right? It's almost, think of it as like spending time with your family over the holidays, right? Your kids or your partner or your spouse or your parents, whatever, right? Would you say, oh, sorry, can't make it any holidays because I'm busy, right? Maybe you do. Maybe that's your life, right? But that's not how I operate. And that's not how many of the people in my space operate, right? They value their families, they value their children, they value their partners, right? And because it is a value and it's a priority, they make time for it. So you don't find time for a pivot with a full plate. You make the time because it's a priority, right? So all of your anchor pieces of your life go in first, and then all of the other things that are keeping your plate full, fill in the gaps if that's what you choose to do. For some people, they choose not to fill in the gaps. They choose to focus on those anchored pieces of their lives, and that is where they put their time, their attention, and their effort and their energy, right? But some people do want to fill in the extras, right? And so then they add those other things that keep them busy and keep their plate full, right? So I guess that is how I would answer that, right? Like, how do you prioritize it? You just do it. If it's important to you, and if it's, so for example, some of my clients, their work, and not necessarily even the job, but how they're engaging with the job and how they are engaging with work is causing them health issues, right? Colitis. Quite a few of my clients have migraines, insomnia, not sleeping well, right? Some of them are struggling with autoimmune disorders or fertility challenges, right? And these are signs that there is excessive stress on the body. And so in that situation, it's not an option to pivot, right? Like, you actually need to pivot. That is the priority, right? The health, you are the asset. So you need to figure out what needs to happen to make that first thing priority a priority. Okay? So that's what I want you to take with you. Let's see if we have any other ones. Okay, I do want to touch on the busy versus aligned and positioning yourself to quit if that is what you want to do. So let me see if there's some other questions that came through. Let me check the comments really quick. See. Okay, we don't have any comments. All right. So, let's see. Is this a good one? You know, if you're busy. Okay. This is actually a really good one. And this actually ties on to the busy question, right? How do I know that me being productive is actually habit and not purpose? That's a weighty one. Let me read that again. How do I know if me being busy or productive is actually habit and not purpose? How do you know? Um, that's a good question. I would say how you know is I don't want to answer the question with with the same question, right? Because what I want to say, my instinct is to say you just know, right? But that's not helpful. So, how do you know if your busyness is out of habit and not purpose? Okay, it will feel, right? This is a feeling, okay, y'all? So I need you to first recognize that it's not going to always be an intellectual thing, right? Y'all listen, my community, y'all are smart. Y'all will run circles around folks, right? When it comes to just being brilliant, right? But in that, right, there's a tendency for us to over intellectualize things, right? And to want to have things make sense in our minds, but there's a disconnect from your heart. And so, how you will know is you will know, like in your spirit, in your body, in your heart. Like you will be doing the thing, but it won't light you up, right? You won't feel like pure joy from doing the thing, right? And this will be true even if you're really good at it, right? So, like for me, right? I know that I am a phenomenal scientist, hands down. I know that when it comes to community engagement, when it comes to advising and impact investing around how to change communities and how to pull big levers like money and policy to shift communities, there's rarely anybody that could do it better than me, right? I know that for a fact. And if they did replace me, they would need probably 2 to 3 people, maybe 4 people, right? To fill in the gap, right? I know that. But I also know that where my superpower is serving women and teaching them the wealth strategy that I have been able to leverage working in that space for all of these years, right? When I am coaching with my clients, like I leave my coaching clients sessions and I'm just like pumped. Like I'm just like, yes, like she's doing the thing. Like, you know, it's just a different level of excitement that I have. And when I'm doing it, it does not feel like work. It feels like joy and it feels like fun, right? And when you are in that energy, you just know it and you attract more of that to you. Okay. So to answer your question, right? How you know is you will have a feeling, you will feel the energy, you will feel your vibration increase, you will have a sense of joy and ease, right? Not that there will be that there won't be challenges, but you will have peace, right? Despite the things that may come up against you or the roadblocks, okay? So that is how you will know, okay? All right. I've been on here a lot answering your questions. Let me see if we got any others in the chat. Okay. All right, last one. Let me see if we can find a question submitted. Let me see if my admin. Okay, so, whew. All right, this actually is a good question. How can I do a soft strategic exit if I can't afford a big risk? Okay, so this is about, I assume this is a question around somebody who's contemplating quitting their job, but they're just not sure if they should or they want to do it safely. I think soft is maybe another word for safe. If this was your question and that's not how it should be interpreted, let me know. Okay, I'm happy to revisit it with you and give you the right answer. So, what does a soft strategic exit? Okay, okay, okay. I can't. Okay, so you can't afford a big risk, but you want a soft strategic exit. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, so I'll tell you this. And like I said, I'm assuming that your word soft means safe, right? Like you're contemplating taking the leap. You want to quit, you want to fire them, but you're like, I'm not sure if I should be doing that. And I can't risk maybe sacrificing income. And I'll tell you, that is a phenomenal question because it's rooted in wisdom. Okay. Now there are a lot of like business coaches and I think entrepreneurship coaches who like may say, you should bet on yourself and fire them and quit and take the big leap and right and like I'm never gonna tell you that because it's not what I did. It wasn't real for me. It wasn't wise to quit my job and just jump into entrepreneurship because here's the thing: it takes capital, it takes energy, and it takes innovation to build a company. And having worked in a university-based business school for almost a decade, there's no wisdom in that, okay? Because you cannot innovate if you are struggling to take care of your basic needs. If you're worried about rent, if you're worried about a car note, if you're worried about food, kids' tuition, right? You are losing your zone of genius because you're coming down into the zone of survival. Okay. So your question is beautiful because it can be soft and it can be strategic, right? You can develop a plan and a strategy that works best for you and not take the big leap, right? The big risk, but you can take calculated risk and you should take calculated risk if your goal is to leave or fire your 9 to 5. Okay. Me leaving my 9 to 5 was a process and it took a couple of years, right? I started with scaling back my schedule to 4 days a week. And that fifth day of the week was my time to work on my business, to, do all the things that I needed to do to make sure that I could build the next thing that I wanted to transition to. So think of it like as an anchor, right? Like your 9 to 5 right now is your anchor. And so in order for you to move to a different boat, you got to get another anchor, right? And so then you slowly build that. And then as you build up that capacity, then you decide based on your goals and based on, how your business is thriving, you decide when the best time is to then pivot or transition from your kind of anchor 9 to 5 into your own thing if entrepreneurship is your goal. Okay. And there is kind of a percentage or revenue decision point that I do sometimes advise my clients on, but I'm not going to say that here because I don't want people to take it as like a blanket number because it really does depend on what's happening in your life, what your goals are, where you are, what type of business, and how fast it's scaling, how much business acumen you have already to actually successfully launch a business, right? And so those things do all kind of take into account, and you have to count the cost, right? When you're making decisions like that. So that is all of the questions that I'm going to cover right now. You guys did submit a few additional ones, and hopefully we can answer those at another time. Because again, I'm going to try to do these more often so that I can be more in community with you all and share with you all a little bit more about what we have going on in the Legacy League and give you a few insights and things for the Career Pivot Challenge as well. So that is all I have. If you are watching this back on the replay, don't forget to say hi to me and drop any questions. If you have, if you have follow-up questions, I will circle back and answer whatever questions that you have. Hi, Nini. Do you have questions about a career pivot? I was getting ready to hop off, but I'll answer if you have questions. Let's see. Okay, so we will leave it at that. And if you are interested in thinking about, right, ways to work less and earn more, right? How can you decrease the amount of output that you're putting out without compromising your pay, right? We want you to be making more money without clocking more hours, okay? So if that's something that's of interest to you and you want to know how does that work? How is that possible? Then I want you to join me next week. Okay. Join me in the Career Pivot Challenge, and I'll put the link in the chat so that you guys can get access to it. But I would love for you to join me because that is where I really break it down. We talk about the 3 career pivots that are available to you. We talk about the 4P framework of a strategy that can position you to pivot if that's something that you want to do. And then I also talk about how, right? How do you implement and what is the type of support that you need to execute it with precision, right? Because many of you have probably heard some of the strategies before, and your issue or your challenge is not information. Your challenge is implementation. And so one of my favorite things to do is walk alongside of women as they implement, right? My coaching style is very high engagement, but I'm also very high accountability, because I have high accountability in my life. I have coaches, I have mentors, I have all sorts of support in my life to help me execute, right? And be who I said I want to be. And so I want that for you. And I want you to be able to get to your next level and live the type of ease that you deserve. Okay. So we ain't taking no pay cuts around here, but we are going to figure out how you can work less and make more coins. Okay. so, so that's all that I have for y'all today. And we'll try to check in again soon. Make sure you like this video, comment again if you're watching on the replay, and share it if you think it's valuable for anybody else that's tuning in, okay? And make sure you're following my Dr. Tiana Rogers page, okay? Because I'm going to try to be more engaged on this page more often, okay? All right, we'll check in again soon.